Woman worked for the same government agency for 23 straight years and was never promoted, not even a single time in her entire career. She never earned more than $4,000 a year in her entire working life. When she finally retired, she had exactly $5,000 to her name, nothing more. When she died 50 years later, at the remarkable age of 101, she quietly left behind $22 million, and almost nobody in her life had any idea that fortune even existed. Not her neighbors, not her few remaining relatives. Nobody at all. This is the true story of Anne Scheiber, and honestly, it might be the single greatest hidden investing story in American history. Hi, I'm Nora, and if you've ever believed you need a high salary, an expensive business degree, or some kind of insider connection to build real wealth, Anne's story is about to completely dismantle that idea for you. She wasn't a trained investor. She wasn't wealthy to begin with, not even close. She was, by every visible measure available to the people around her, an ordinary, overlooked woman living quietly alone in a small rent-controlled apartment in New York City. And yet, invisibly, patiently, she built one of the most extraordinary personal fortunes of the entire 20th century, one single dollar at a time. Anne was born in Brooklyn in 1893, one of 9 children in her family. Her father died while she was still quite young, leaving her mother to support the entire household alone by managing local real estate properties. Money was genuinely tight throughout her childhood, so Anne started working early, first as a bookkeeper at just 15 years old, while also quietly studying law and accounting on the side whenever she found the time. Eventually, she landed a stable government position as an estate auditor at the Internal Revenue Service, spending her career reviewing the tax returns of some of the wealthiest people in the entire country, all while never earning anywhere close to that kind of money herself. For 23 straight years, Anne worked diligently at the IRS. By every account from people who knew her, she was genuinely excellent at her job, sharp, thorough, and dependable. But she was passed over for promotion again and again and again, largely because she was a woman working in a professional field that simply did not promote women during that era, no matter how capable they were. She watched colleagues with clearly less experience rise past her year after year, while her own salary barely moved an inch. By the time she finally retired in 1944, at the age of 51, her salary had still never crossed $4,000 a year, and she was, quite understandably, deeply bitter about all of it. With only her modest government pension and $5,000 in personal savings, Anne did something almost nobody around her expected. Instead of quietly settling into an ordinary, uneventful retirement, she taught herself, entirely on her own initiative, exactly how the stock market actually worked from the ground up. She had already lost a meaningful amount of money once before, back in the 1930s, after trusting a broker's confident but ultimately bad advice. So this time around, she made a firm decision to trust no one but herself and her own careful research going forward. Anne's overall strategy was almost embarrassingly simple once you actually break it down. She looked specifically for large, stable, well-known companies with strong and consistent earnings, the kind of everyday businesses that ordinary people relied on constantly without even thinking twice about it. Companies like Coca-Cola and Schering Plough, among many others. Once she bought into a stock she genuinely believed in, she almost never sold it, even during the periods when the broader market dropped 30 or even 50%, which it absolutely did happen more than once across her 50-year investing career. She reinvested every single dividend payment she ever received instead of spending a cent of it, letting her money quietly, patiently compound on top of itself, year after year, decade after decade, without interruption. And her personal frugality really was almost extreme by any modern standard. Friends and distant acquaintances say she wore the exact same black coat and matching hat for years on end. Through brutal summer heat and freezing winter cold alike, never once replacing them. She reportedly spent no more than $2 a week on food for herself. She walked to appointments across the city instead of paying bus fare whenever she possibly could manage it. She lived in the very same modest, rent-controlled apartment for decades on end, never once upgrading, never once treating herself to even a small fraction of the lifestyle her rapidly growing fortune could have very easily afforded her. When Anne finally passed away in 1995, at the truly remarkable age of 101 years old, her modest $5,000 starting nest egg had grown into a full fortune worth $22 million. In her will, she left almost the entire amount to Yeshiva University, a school she had actually never even personally attended and had no prior connection to whatsoever, specifically to fund scholarships for young Jewish women pursuing their education. She wanted to give other women the kind of genuine opportunity that had been so unfairly denied to her throughout her own frustrating career. When university administrators first received the surprising news, they were completely and utterly stunned by it. They had never once even heard her name mentioned before that moment. Nobody at the entire school had any idea who Anne Scheiber even was, or that this quiet, reclusive elderly woman had been quietly sitting on a multi-million-dollar fortune for decades, without a single word to anyone. The university's president later said that elation would honestly be an understatement to describe how the entire staff felt once they fully realized what had actually just happened. So what can we genuinely take away from Anne's remarkable story? She never earned a particularly high income throughout her entire working life. She never had access to insider information, expensive financial software, or a prestigious finance degree of any kind. What she did have was patience, extreme consistency, and an absolute, almost stubborn refusal to touch her investments once she had carefully made them. She proved, in the most dramatic way imaginable, that simply staying invested in the market over a very long period of time, combined with disciplined, boring, endlessly repeated behavior, can outperform almost anything else out there, including a much higher salary paired with impatience and constant second-guessing. If you've ever felt like you're starting far too small, or far too late in life, or with far too little money to actually matter in the long run, remember that Anne started with just $5,000 at the age of 51, using a strategy that almost anyone could technically copy today with the right information. The real ingredient that made her story possible was never the modest amount she started with. It was the 50 completely uninterrupted years she patiently gave it afterward, and the quiet discipline to never once let her spending catch up with her steadily growing wealth. Your future self genuinely isn't waiting around for you to discover some secret hidden formula that nobody else has found yet. They're simply waiting for you to actually start, and then to stay remarkably consistent for far longer than feels exciting or rewarding in any given moment. If Anne's quiet, extraordinary story moved you the same way it moved me, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because every single week I share one more true story exactly like this one. Thank you so much for watching all the way through, and I will see you in the very next one. Quick note before you go. This video is for education and entertainment purposes only, and it isn't personal financial advice. Every situation is different, so please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial professional before making any investing decisions of your own.